Culton from We Thrive Together. I want to welcome everybody to today's event. We're going to be doing some magic in the Instant Pot with Susan. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Susan, and she could take it from here. Thank you.
All right. All right, as Steve said, we are going to cook in the Instapot today. My name is Susan. I'm an Aetna rep. I manage Trumbull, Mahoning, Columbiana, Carroll, and Jefferson. And this is my son, Hayden. One of my most favorite things so far about having so much time at home together is getting to cook with Hayden. He's coming along nicely. What we're going to be making tonight is a Tex-Mex chicken bowl. It has... Again, one of my themes is always to try to do things with what you have on hand. So, we have diced up chicken here. I'm losing my onion. So, diced up chicken, a packet of taco seasoning, the long grain rice that lots of people get at a food pantry but never know what to do with. And then I have chili beans, black beans, diced tomatoes, and corn. So that is what we're going to use to make these bowls. Now, Hayden told me that this is actually extremely similar to something he gets from...
Either Qdoba or Chipotle.
Yeah, Qdoba or Chipotle. He actually made me tweak my recipe a little bit so that it was more like what he used to get on campus instead of how I wanted to make it. But that's okay. You know, if you like either of those restaurants, maybe you'll love this recipe. So we're going to get started. Go ahead and open this up. Yeah, just go ahead and pop it in there.
This is frozen.
It is frozen. That's one of the things that I love about cooking in the Instapot is you can literally start from frozen chicken, throw it in there, and it cooks and it's fine. So yeah, just go ahead and throw that in there. All right, now we're going to use 1 cup of the long grain rice. Now, it's very important when you use this rice that you rinse the rice. You're going to rinse it under cold water until the water comes off clear. While I'm doing that, if you would dice up this onion, I would appreciate it.
Can you hand me the knife?
I surely can. There you go. To rinse the rice, you really just want to put it in a bowl that you can see because you want to rinse it until this water runs clear. So I'm going to go do that under the faucet. That might be hot water. You kind of want to stir it around. I don't know if you can see, but it gets this starchy water on it. That's what you want to get rid of. If you don't rinse your rice well, you're going to end up with sticky, gloppy rice.
Of all things, the onion is being difficult.
Do what?
I said, I don't know why of all things the onion is being difficult. It wasn't.
It's trying to make you cry.
I don't want to cry. Crying is no fun. Alright. How thinly do you want these?
Just a regular chop. You don't need to dice them, but you don't want real big pieces either.
Oh, that is a skewed cut. That's fine though. That's fine though. I'm not feeling that at all. No. Whatever this film is, no. I'm not about it.
My water's still a little cloudy. I'm going to have you keep on rinsing it until it's not. That's what makes good rice. Once you're satisfied with the water coming off of your rice, you just want to dump off as much of it as you can. If you're the really particular type and you want to put it through a strainer and all that stuff, you can, but it's really not necessary. Just drain off as much as you can. If your rice is too wet after cooking, you can always just put your Instapot on simmer and, just kind of do that so that it will, absorb some of the liquid up. So we're just going to throw this rice in on top of the chicken, the frozen chicken that's already in there.
I would think once stirred, these little...
Yes, those will be fine. Whew, that is a strong onion, Lord.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm the one cutting.
All right, now while he's doing that, This is a package of taco seasoning. You can get it anywhere. This particular one is the Walmart brand. If you don't have taco seasoning on hand, you could certainly use chili powder, salt, pepper, cumin. You could just put some salsa in there to flavor it with.
Is onion powder in there at all?
Onion powder, yes. Actually, the ingredients on this is chili powder, onion powder, a bunch of chemicals that I can't pronounce, and salt. So, you know, it's really not rocket science to make a taco seasoning. So we're going to put that in there.
Does the onion go in?
Yes,
right
the onion goes in right now. And I'm going to add this taco seasoning as well. All right. And then, as always, when you're cooking just about anything in the Instapot, you need 1 cup of water. That's it. So, I'm going to get that. Now, if you're new to your Instapot, one of the things that I could not get through my brain was the whole 1 cup of water thing. If I was cooking a lot of something, I assumed that I needed more than a cup of water. So I would try to adjust that. And any time that I got away from using 1 cup of water, I screwed it up. So 1 cup of water is generally what you need unless your recipe calls for more. So we're actually going to put the lid on and we're going to start cooking this just as it is.
You want me to start opening cans?
You sure can. All right, we're going to set this to pressure cook. We're going to set it for 8 minutes.
Does it start going before the vegetables are put in?
Yes,
Okay.
because you don't want to cook the vegetables to death.
Now, are all of the liquids that are in with the vegetables going in, or should they be drained?
Well, the chili beans, well, let me get this going. Hold on.
All right, I'll allow you to do that.
All right, yes, because this will take time to start doing its Instapot magic. Now, this will have to come to pressure, so you're going to want to watch over here. You want to make sure that you have it sealed with the little valve in the back, and it'll come to pressure, and then the little red sensor in the back will come up. But yes, we are going to put the sauce from the chili beans in there. Now, when you open this can of black beans, you're going to see why we don't want the sauce from the black beans.
Oh, I've had black bean liquid in my Chipotle bowls before. It's
Yeah,
not the best.
it's not only is it not the best, it's just plain old gross looking. So we're gonna put the liquid from the tomatoes and the chili beans in there, but we're gonna drain the corn and the black beans. And I'm gonna get rid of the onions here, the onion skin and whatnot.
I mangled that can.
Yeah, now you're gonna, again, wanna drain those and rinse them to the best of your ability.
I'll allow you to do that while I go grab a garbage can.
Okay.
Because this doesn't have...
I don't know if you can see or if you've ever experienced black beans out of a can, but literally the liquid in there is black, which normally when you're eating things, anything that looks like that in a can is a big turn off. So all you gotta do is rinse it, it comes right off. Can you see that coming off of there, folks? It's kind of nasty.
I was about to say, I can. Even
You
if
just
they...
run water in there and
Is
rinse.
there anything left in that taco seasoning packet?
Shouldn't be.
Alright, cool.
Rinse and drain.
And I'm assuming you don't need this bowl anymore?
Nope. He's so good to help clean up. I just love it. All right, the water's finally starting to look a little bit more palatable now. Less nasty. So I'm going to drain it all the way off of there now.
That's not even moving, is it? No, it's not. What was it? Oh, no, it was. I'm being real dumb. I'm not done yet. Alrighty. So you said drain the liquid off the corn?
Yes. Now this is actually a very versatile recipe. Today in particular, whoops, now look what you did. Today in particular, we're making it with chicken. You can make it with hamburger. To be quite honest, last time I made it, and Hayden and I had it for lunch, I didn't have any meat in it. So it's very much, you can kind of, that was one of the suggestions that he made, was to put some chicken in it so that it was more like a Qdoba bowl. I personally like it without. When I made it last time, I put a sweet potato in with the onions and the rice. You know, the sweet and the spicy go very well together, but it's very versatile. You can serve it just the way we're making it. If you want to get fancy and make it more like they have at the restaurant, you might want to garnish it with sour cream and salsa, or maybe some cheese. We're definitely going to do the cheese. As for the sour cream and salsa, that's really up to your taste. If you want it to be kind of more taco-y, obviously, you know, sour cream and salsa are a good combination. Going to clean up your mess a little bit now. If you don't like black beans, you could certainly do 2 cans of the chili beans. I like having the mixture of the two. I think it's a good taste. The tomatoes, I managed to, I forget where I got these. I think I got them at Sparkle, and they're actually already chili ready. So there's some seasoning in the tomatoes as well. I've also used the corn that has the little chilies in it. I can't think of what that's called. I don't know, but anyway, if you want to use, it's kind of like what we say in the name. It's Instapot with what you've got. So if you have 2 cans of chili beans but no black beans, or you know, you don't have tomatoes, maybe you want to put salsa in it instead. All of that is fine. If you would rather use hamburger instead of chicken, that's fine too. If you want to do it with leftover chicken from the other night, you know, as long as you season it up with the taco seasoning and put it in there, I think it's going to be just fine.
Or if you want to get real fancy, you could even use steak.
Well, yeah, if you really wanted to get fancy, you could use steak, but there's never leftover steak at our house. I don't know about anybody else.
Not leftover steak.
I'm not making a steak just to go in a Qdoba bowl.
Oh, I'm like, see me in my future.
Like I said, we are going to go ahead and garnish with the cheese. So while this is coming to pressure and doing its thing, it is thinking about it. Now with the frozen chicken in there, it does, you know, take a couple of minutes longer to come to pressure than it would otherwise. So I'm going to go ahead and open this cheese and start to shred it. But yeah, to make the rice, because the rice is the main component in here that is particular on the time, you're going to do 8 minutes on the rice and then a 10-minute natural release. Now, if you've never cooked with your Instapot before, a natural release is, instead of flipping the release and letting all the steam come flying out, you do a natural release for 10 minutes. And what that means is, you just leave it alone. Once the, you know, it beeps to tell you that it's done pressure cooking, and then it shuts off, and you just leave it sit for 10 minutes because it continues cooking. I mean, even though, you know, it's no longer actively cooking, it's still very, very hot in there. So it's actually gonna, you know, finish cooking while, even though it's not technically cooking anymore. Does that make any sense? Because it technically is cooking. So I'm probably just talking in circles, and I do apologize for that. But the point is, on a lot of recipes, you will see either a quick release or a natural release. Quick release is, as soon as that's done cooking, you flip the thing, tons and tons of steam comes flying out of there. A natural release is leaving it sit for a set number of time. Oh, for the sour cream and salsa.
Yeah.
Got it. Look at you.
So I'm using both of those. So.
All right. Would you like to grate the cheese?
Sure. Which, big or small?
All right. This is to shred. This is to slice. This is to grate. This is for like Parmesan and things like that. So you want to do this.
You want that?
Yeah.
How much of this do you, half the block?
Well, 3 of us are going to eat it. So how much cheese do you like?
I'll probably end up putting a little bit of extra cheese on top because I really like cheese.
Well, then
how
you
much
should-
cheese do you want?
I would say at least half of it, if not
I'll
3/4
see-
of it.
I was about to say, I'll see how much is there after I do half of it.
All right.
How am I meant to hold this? Like this, you guessing?
Exactly. You hold it. Well, look, you're going to put this here. And you're going to push that against the thing, and you're going to...
That's fascinating.
It's fascinating. My college boy says shredding cheese is fascinating. I love it.
All right, so how's, like, just down?
You're doing it perfect, yes. You're good. So I was cracking up as we were preparing to come here today. Hayden's like, why did you bring the block cheese instead of the shredded cheese? And I said, well, because, you know, while the pressure cooker's doing its magic, we have to take up time. So we're going to shred cheese. And he's like, you mean we've had a cheese shredder all along? I'm like, yeah.
I've had so many times where I've cut up block cheese to shredded size.
I love it.
Grab that from there. All right.
But it's just funny because, all these years I've just cooked and really, he usually doesn't hang out in the kitchen with me. So he's learning all kinds of stuff right now.
I am, too.
And to be honest, I normally don't cook out of cans or boxes or anything like that. I'll never forget when I first married my husband, I told him I was going to make macaroni and cheese. We hadn't been married long enough for him to know that I don't do things out of a box. And so he said something about, well, is it shells and cheese or is it regular? And I'm like, no, it's, flour and cheese and butter and pasta. And he's like, I like the kind out of a box. Well, needless to say, he came home to a pound of frozen hot dogs and a can of baked beans that he could figure out how to heat up and eat. So I like doing things homemade. But in this particular case, this is a quick meal. Lots of things come out of a can, but there are healthy things coming out of a can. You got the beans, which is very good for you, high in fiber, high in protein. You got 2 different vegetables. If you put some salsa in there, there's even a bigger dose of vegetables. You're shredding that so wonderfully.
Thank you. I'm trying to get to, because it kind of broke on me. So
Oh, no.
trying to get through that.
I'm not sure if you can hear, but this is starting to do its thing. I can hear the
I'll set this here.
water starting to boil and sizzle and things like that. The little red gauge back here is starting to jiggle. So here soon, this is going to start counting down our 8 minutes.
If we want any more, we can just grate it then.
Sounds good.
There we go.
So I don't know if we have any questions yet, but I did want to mention, I spend a lot of time at the food pantries through my work. My specific assignment at work is low-income seniors. So one of the best places to meet low-income seniors is at the food pantries and things like that. And all of the main ingredients for this dish, other than the cheese and the taco packet, are things that I see handed out at the food pantries very, very regularly. Chili beans, black beans, I'll tell you something else I see people get at the food pantry all the time is garbanzo beans. If you wanted to substitute garbanzo beans instead of the black beans, you certainly could. They have a much milder taste, but, any kind of beans you could really put in here.
I feel like I've seen garbanzo beans as another name. What are they?
Chickpeas. It's what
Gotcha.
hummus is made out of. Anybody that doesn't know that, yeah, if you get garbanzo beans at the food pantry, it's funny because I've tried to figure out, see, it's starting to steam. I like roasting them with a seasoning packet, either taco or ranch or whatever, roasted garbanzo beans. You do it in the oven and they're delicious. Everybody's always like, I don't know what to do with these garbanzo beans. They're really good if you know what to do with them, and you don't have to make hummus out of them. I like things being crunchy and salty. See that? It's doing its thing.
I do see it.
Oh, see?
Stop.
It almost looks like a turkey timer just popped up. But my guess would be it now says, any second now it's going to change over to 8, and then it's going to count down. And that's how we know that it's doing its thing in cooking. Now, I don't know if you were with us on Monday, but we were trying to do cooking show magic with 2 different Instapots so that instead of standing here and talking, we could just pull out the food that was already made. And the Instapot was doing crazy stuff, and it did not work out that very well. And I can see Hayden's having a thought, but I don't know what he's doing.
Grabbing a bigger spoon for that salsa.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not about to take a teaspoon.
All right, it still says on, but honestly, any minute now, it's going to turn to 8, and it's going to start counting down. But anytime you're making an Instapot recipe, you do have to allow for the time it takes to come to pressure. A lot of people, 20 years ago, my mother had a pressure cooker. And we were actually all scared to death of it because she would tell this story about how, somebody who knew somebody who was the uncle of a somebody, their pressure cooker exploded. These are not the pressure cookers of 20 years ago. There's a lot more safety measures. He got cheese in the tomatoes. But there's a lot more safety measures. To be honest, the only major safety concern that there is with this now is when you release the pressure. Now, when I first got my Instapot, I was literally all like, 6 feet back, trying to do it with the spoon. I was scared to death of it. Now I just flick it real fast and don't worry about it. Oh, I just heard it. I bet it went to 8. Yay! All right, we are at pressure and we are cooking. This is going to cook for 8 minutes, and then we're going to do a 10-minute natural release. Now, what's beeping? What did I do?
You touched touched it.
I touched it.
You made it mad.
No, it's all right. It's still doing its thing.
All right.
So, but like I said, instead of trying to do the two different Instapots and make cooking show magic, we're just going to bear with this one so that you can actually see, you know, how long it takes us to get the meal together. So, and you also might wonder, you know, why these are things that we're going to put in the dish, but we're not cooking it right now. In the 8 minutes that this is cooking, you have to understand something. It is taken frozen chicken, frozen, you know, out of the freezer. He banged it on the table, chicken, and it's going to be done in 8 minutes plus a 10-minute natural release. If you put these beans in here and cooked it in with that, we would end up with refried beans instead of a nice, you know, bean bowl. So what we're going to do, what, honey?
I said, honestly, with the idea of that, refried beans wouldn't be entirely bad.
I have made refried beans in there before.
I'm saying, like, with that idea, with, like, chicken, rice, the Mexican seasonings and
absolutely.
everything, refried
Yeah.
beans wouldn't be bad.
Right.
But for this, you want a more solid bean.
So, I mean, about the only one of these 4 vegetables that you would want to put in there for it to get cooked a lot is if you wanted to put the tomato in there, you can. But once this is done cooking, we're going to throw the other things in and then we're going to turn it on to saute and just cook it long enough to get everything combined and mixing together well. So, while it's doing that, something else that we discussed doing was making applesauce in our Instapot as a demonstration. I don't know. No, I did not. Plus, I didn't bring the apples. Because I didn't want to do 2 different things because I don't want to run out of Instapot dishes to make, you know, so I don't want people to learn all of my secrets and then not want to watch me on here anymore. So, anyway, but we may do applesauce next time. But I tell you what, applesauce, literally, you set this puppy for a minute. You know, you peel quarters. What's it called? Peel and core your apples, and then you put it in the Instapot for a minute, and it's applesauce. I mean, it happens that fast. It's amazing.
I mean, yeah, it's almost all water, so like with the pressure in there, it would just
It really does. It just happens instantly.
That makes sense.
So is it counting down? I don't want to get up on my tippy toes again and look. It is counting down? Okay, good. I'm starting to smell it. It smells chickeny. That's something else. If you don't have the taco seasoning and you're just going to use maybe chili powder or whatever, you might want to put a chicken bouillon cube in with it to help get things flavored up. When I use the taco seasoning, I don't use the chicken bouillon cube only because there's enough spices and salt and everything in the taco seasoning that you don't need it. But again, if you don't have taco seasoning on hand, or maybe you don't really like spicy stuff or whatever, this is going to be about a medium on the spicy scale. But if you're not a fan of that and you just want to use some chili powder and salt and pepper, you certainly can. But if you're going to do that, I would suggest putting a bouillon cube in there, you know, to help flavor up the rice. You could use leftover hamburger, or as you said, make a steak.
I was about to say, like, cubed up steak.
Yeah.
That would be pretty good in there.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I'm not sure if the time would the time be the same for that?
Well, it depends on if it was leftover steak or new steak.
New steak.
New steak, well, if you wanted it to be well done, 8 would be good. But if you wanted it to be more of a medium or a medium well, you would want to go less. Which means, he brought up a good point actually, if you were going to do that, one of the reasons that I like doing the chicken with it is because the chicken just happens to have the same cook time as the rice. If you were going to do it with the steak, you would not want to do it in with the rice because your rice would be underdone and crunchy. And if you've ever watched Chopped, crunchy rice will get you chopped. Just saying.
Now, what if you have leftover steak? What's the time on that?
Leftover steak. In that case, what I would do is I would do the cup of rice and the cup of water.
Rice separate. And then would you throw that in with the veggies essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because at that point you're just going to be reheating it and, you know, getting it all nice and combined, things like that. So absolutely, if you're doing it with a leftover protein.
No, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I was making sure we had bowls ready.
We did. Yeah, I did all that this time, so I wasn't fumbling around through the cupboards and the drawers. But again, at Qdoba, or it's even kind of like Hotheads, because I get a bowl of Hotheads too.
Any of your like Mexican joints that you can kind of run through, be it Chipotle, Qdoba, Hotheads, any of those, all of them, they've got this type of bowl readily available.
When I made this before, actually, I put lettuce on top of mine too, just to get kind of the crunch and the textural difference.
I would put lettuce in there too.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you have them on the side, even like tortilla chips, crush
Oh,
those
that
up,
would
put
be
that over
good.
it.
Yeah. And I tell you something else. Again, this is a very versatile recipe. If you don't have rice, but you had, see, I like making it with quinoa because it has a very high glycemic index and it's real high in fiber, high in protein. But you could make it with pasta and it would almost be like a taco pasta. That would be good too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we'll have to do on another one of our episodes is make pasta in the Instapot. Not spaghetti, but pasta. You can make a great macaroni and cheese in the Instapot, and it's really good.
As soon as you said pasta, I was like, I want mac and cheese.
That's funny.
Right on.
Yeah. Now, Hayden would never ask me to make macaroni and cheese out of a box. He knows better.
I would just ask for mac and cheese, and you would just hand me, like, if you were to hand me boxed mac and cheese, I wouldn't complain, but the out of box is not coming out of box is preferred.
Yeah. I was going to say, we have out of box experiences at our house, huh?
Yes.
Anyway, what's it doing? All right, we're getting there. We're down to 2 minutes now. Like I said, after that, it is going to have to natural release. But, you know, it is cooking. I can smell the taco seasoning and the chicken. It's definitely coming through. It is cooking. You're going to be shocked, like I said, at how fast this will be done. So we have another 10 minutes to talk through.
Another 10?
How about, can we potentially take some questions?
We could definitely take some questions.
Awesome. So with the Instapot, obviously when somebody gets an Instapot, you know, if they don't have one already, it can be a little intimidating.
Yes.
In terms of how to get started. I know there's a couple recipes with it, but can you talk a little bit about how you got comfortable with the Instapot and potentially how you not only found some recipes, but how you really tested it to make it work for you?
Yeah, okay. Well, I tell you, when I first got it, it was so funny because I consider myself to be an accomplished cook. I love to cook. People love to eat what I cook. And so in my mind, this was just another cooking appliance. And I was going to master it as soon as I took it out of the box because that's how things tend to go for me in the kitchen. I was wrong. I threw away roasts. I threw away spaghetti. I'm going to say a good 10 different things were inedible that I had to throw away. And I actually was like, I'm not cooking in this thing. I hate it. I don't want it anymore. All right, that is the beep, beep, beeping that I was talking about. If the recipe said quick release, this is when you would want to flick this valve and release it. But we're going to do a 10-minute natural release. So we're going to watch for this to say 10 before we release the pressure. Now,
So it's before putting everything else in.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so back to the question. I guess the turning point for me was when I found a group on Facebook called Instapot 101. Is it for dummies? I don't know if I've showed it to you or not.
I don't know. I'm not in the group.
I don't know. I've
I don't
added so
know.
many of my friends to this group because honestly, that is where I learned how to use my Instapot. It's a group. It probably has 10,000 people in it. And it's funny because right after Christmas, you can tell when all the newbies get their Instapot and they're asking all these questions. But honestly, Pinterest is the worst. Do not go to Pinterest for your Instapot recipes. They're not tested. People pin them because they sound good, but they have not actually tried to use them. So either, search Instant Pot macaroni and cheese or Instant Pot whatever it is that you want. Don't just search a recipe for what sounds good, because trying to right off the bat change a recipe to make it work in the Instapot, it doesn't work. Like I said, I just assumed because I was a good cook that I would master the Instapot because I was a good cook. It's not. It's a totally different style of cooking. So I would say, if you just got your Instapot and you're wanting to learn how to use it, Instapot 101 for beginners, I think is what it's called, on Facebook or on YouTube. There's a guy called Under Pressure. He does cooking videos. I know, isn't that funny? He does cooking videos as well, and his recipes are really good. Don't do like me and just assume that you know it all and you can do it, because you will end up throwing food away. I promise you. Because I did. I was like, we are not eating this. So, any other
Well,
questions?
Yes. So obviously, when you're utilizing it, sometimes the timing seems a little bit like unnatural, right? To be able to cook chicken that quickly
Yes.
and for it to be okay. I mean, how did you get through that from even coming from a standard cooking background, really understanding how to do it, to the sort of the quick speeds of the Instapot?
Again, that group was really, really instrumental because one of the things that I was doing wrong was, okay, you'd have to know me better. One of the first things I tried to do in this puppy was a roast, and it was this big, beautiful roast. And I thought, I've read I can do a roast in an hour. So I threw a roast in there with, how I would normally make a roast. I set it for an hour, and I was like, okay, do it. Well, needless to say, that didn't work out. When you cook things in here, one of the first things you have to understand is if it is already cut up, it's going to cook much, much faster than if it is solid. For instance, we threw a solid chunk of frozen chicken in here, but it was cut up frozen chicken. A lot of times, because it's so late when I get home and I'm ready to cook dinner, I will go ahead and meal prep stuff and put it in a bag in the freezer. That's one of the reasons. If it was just a frozen,
I'm not about that. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm
it's
not about
corn skin.
it. I looked at it and didn't like it. So
Anyway, so you do learn really quick. Things, chicken, 8 minutes, and that's from frozen. But if it's a larger chicken breast, like what we did last time, you're going to do 8 minutes from thawed. Normally, you only need to add 2 minutes to something if it's small and you're cooking it from frozen. Now, if you're going to do a frozen roast, now again, I don't know how long you're used to cooking a roast. My roasts were always like 3, 4, 5 hours. A roast in the Instapot, for it to be fall apart tender and delicious, maybe an hour and a half if it's a big one. And that's honestly, if you want it to go faster than that, cut it into pieces. It might not be as visually attractive, but if you want it to cook faster and you cut it into 4 pieces, you could probably do a roast from beginning to end in maybe 45 minutes. So it's one of those things you just have to get a feel for. There are great cookbooks for Instapot. Now, I'm more about, I pull out my phone, Instant Pot, whatever it is, blah, 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 blah. That's how I like to find recipes now. I rarely ever get out a cookbook anymore. I like to just Google it. And I also like to Google it because normally there will be comments on there. You're big on the comments. What's happening? The internet connection is unstable. Oh, no. Is it because I moved my phone?
probably. Yeah.
Oh, no. We'll put the phone right
It's
there.
good now. You can see me.
All right. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
So, what was I saying? Oh, you can read the comments, especially if you go to the Facebook group, you can read the comments. And there's literally a Facebook group for Instapot out there for pretty much everything. There's Keto Life Instapot. There's Weight Watchers Instapot. There's so many different ones. Whatever style of cooking you're into, if you have Facebook, you can find a group of your people on Facebook cooking the types of things that you want to cook in your Instapot. So honestly, my suggestion would be, if you're on Facebook, find a group cooking the stuff that you want to cook. One of the really good ones, if you're trying to lose weight, is Instant Loss for Instapot.
That's pretty good.
It is. There's all kinds of stuff on there. What are we at now? 5 minutes. Okay, we have 5 more minutes. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start getting the dishes and whatnot out. I have 3 bowls out here because they are Tex-Mex chicken bowls. I know we're going to want more cheese than that. Salt and pepper.
The communication might not look as nice, but the timing on everything here would work a lot better with one person.
Yeah.
I was about to say the timing, obviously not communication, but everything, it would be more.
100% I could have done this alone. Yes, I could have done this alone, but it's so much more fun to cook with somebody. It really is.
Plus I'm learning.
Plus he's learning, that's right. And I have another Instapot that I'll probably send back to college with you when you go.
If they even let me. Or if I'm living in an apartment at that
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, you're not allowed to have one in the dorm, but if you have an apartment, you can have an Instapot.
There were some things in there that, you weren't supposed to have. But.
Yeah. I actually had 3 Instapots at one point, and I gave one to my daughter. And I almost bought another Instapot just this past week because I wanted one that had the air fryer built in, But Hayden actually talked some sense into me and was like, do you really need a third Instapot? We already have an air fryer. So I just bought the air fryer lid instead of a whole nother Instapot.
Plus, wasn't it like over $100 cheaper?
Yeah, it was over $100 cheaper. So maybe if I experiment with my new air fryer lid for my Instapot, we could do something with that for a demonstration. What are we at now? 3 minutes. Okay. It's smelling good. I'm getting hungry.
What are you going to eat this with, a spoon or a fork?
I'm going to eat it with a fork. I have forks over here, buddy.
Do you? I'll grab a spoon for me.
Another question. So
Did you
what
say
is
we
something
have-
you've tried to put in the pot that didn't work out? Is there something that you just have tried and like no way it's gonna work?
I tell you what, one of the things, of all the dumb things I had a problem mastering, was the hard-boiled eggs that we had the question about last time. In my mind, I thought if I did a lot of eggs in here, I needed more water. In my mind, if I was doing a dozen eggs, there was no way possible that 1 cup of water was going to cook a dozen eggs. So I literally can't tell you how many eggs I threw away because I would crack them and they would still be raw inside. I finally figured out that when it says a cup, it means a cup. You don't need more than a cup. You can fill the whole pot with eggs. And as long as it comes to pressure with that cup of water, you can do it. Something else. Good question, actually. If you're going to do a roast in the Instapot, like a round, what are they called? A top round roast. Those do not work very well because there's not a lot of fat in them. If you want a really, really good roast to do in the Instapot, get one of those flat roasts. I can't think of what they're called.
Oh, no.
A chuck roast, maybe?
Chuck roast?
It's the flat roast. You don't want the kind of roast like this. You want the flat roast. It has a much higher fat content and comes out much, much better in the Instapot. So that's something else. Don't do a top round roast in the Instapot because, are you making fun of me?
I just found it funny because you were like, roast like this, roast like this.
Well,
I
there's
was
the
like, I
fat
don't know what
roast
you're
that
talking
stands
about.
up like this, and then there's the flat roast like this.
I mean, I don't go shopping for roasts enough to.
Well, maybe
understand
you're
that.
going to now.
Send me shopping, okay? Get me out of the house.
Yeah. What are we at
For a
now?
while.
1 minute.
Have another minute.
All
before we
right.
add anything else. Now, how long is this going to go once everything else is in? So once the veggies. That's all it's getting added. This is put on.
Right, that's
put on
garnish,
after,
garnish,
that's fine.
garnish. Right. Basically, we're going to dump those 3 things in and we're going to put it on saute until it absorbs those liquids. What?
Isn't there 4 things?
Yeah.
I was
4
like-
things.
I was like, what vegetable isn't getting added? I was like, wait.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
I was confused for a moment.
I was confused too.
All right, we are at the 10-minute mark. Now, if you are new to your Instapot, steam will burn you like, whoa, like emergency room burn. So if you're new to your Instapot, you might want to stand back and do it like this. Why isn't there steam coming out? Well, that's a terrible thing. We did the 10-minute, no, this isn't necessarily bad. We did the 10-minute natural release, so it may have just released in 10 minutes.
I was about to say, there's steam coming out of there. I can tell it's hot in there.
All right,
I'm gonna look at it.
start, well, it doesn't look like much now. Start mixing in the vegetables. That's
Creaminess to
chicken. Well, there's always, when you cook chicken or any other protein, yucky stuff comes out of it. I don't know what it is that comes out of it, but it
I was
does.
about to say, it looked like sour cream. I was like,
Yeah.
we didn't add that in yet.
All right, so we're gonna cancel, and then we're going to go to
Sauteed, didn't you say?
saute. Yes. All right, start dumping in the other stuff.
All right.
First, we got the black beans.
Yeah.
Did you just ew?
Yeah, I looked at the bottom of the can and it had residual black bean juice, and I was like, not about it.
You can tell he's in college. Residual black bean juice. All right, so I'm making sure all the chicken is broken up, and then we're getting this all nice and combined. It smells so good.
Oh, that's fantastic sounding. Love that.
All right.
So that was the
stir
chili
it
beans
around.
and now
Yes,
it's the
that was the
tomatoes.
chili beans. Now we got the tomatoes.
Are we adding all the tomatoes in?
All the tomatoes. Dump it in there. All right.
I don't like the sounds to that at
You
all.
don't like the sounds of that?
Not any of that being added. was good,
Alright.
Except the corn. The corn was whatever.
Now, because of adding, the chili beans and the tomatoes, there is a little bit of liquid in here. I don't know if you can see, see that. You just want to stir it around until some of that liquid is absorbed. So it is cooking. Because the rice is cooked, you want to keep on stirring that around. You don't want your rice to burn to the bottom. I have a feeling of all the recipes that I will show you in the Instapot, this will probably be something you'll make.
Yeah, honestly, what I would do is I'd probably make that just without the, the diced tomatoes, and just put salsa on top instead.
You could.
That would just be something I would do.
Yeah. Now, I do the diced tomatoes because, like I said, my whole purpose of doing this show is to let people know different stuff they can do with the food pantry.
Yeah.
Do they have food pantries at college?
Probably around college. And they've got what do they call it? It was something covered. It was in the student union. It was essentially a little food pantry, except it was just like a cabinet, not like an entire place.
What was in it, like ramen noodles?
Oh, it had like ramen noodles, boxed mac and cheese, and I'm pretty sure it was black beans. Like I think that was it.
No.
Maybe like green beans. There wasn't much like meal-wise.
You know how the green beans got there, right? Some well-meaning parents sent green beans to college with their kid, and their kid was like, I ain't eating that crap, and they put it in the pantry.
I mean, in the dorms, we hardly have any way to prepare it, except for a microwave. But I can't imagine a can of microwaved green beans to go well with much of what you're going to have in a dorm.
This is almost ready. All of the liquid is almost absorbed. So if you want to shred any more of that cheese, now's the time to do it.
I'm going to wait and then end up just like shredding more on top if need be.
Okay.
So we can move this forward. Start to move these over for you.
All right, I'm going to start dishing this up. Ooh, it's right.
Oh, this is unopened.
Here for the cooking show.
Well, is that a chef jacket?
That's right, that's a chef jacket. I'm here for the cooking show.
The cooking's done, babe.
Oh,
And we don't have a cooking jacket on.
I wanted to look. If I look the part, I can do it, right?
I guess so, but it's more important that you know how to do it. Did you pay enough attention to make this next time?
A little bit.
All right. Oh, we're starting to stick. I better dish up faster. Let's turn it off. That's what we need to do. Cancel. All right.
You forgot to tell the story when we were first married. She says, I need potatoes, and as a single guy, I brought home instant mashed potatoes.
Oh, I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do with that?
You're like, we cook from scratch in this house.
Yes. You remember that when you came home to the frozen hot dogs?
Yeah.
Now, my husband will probably try to pick out the tomatoes.
Oh, have fun trying to get those out.
Exactly. Because it is
Have fun
well
with
combined.
Well, you made that soup in the Instapot that flavored the tomatoes. It didn't taste like tomatoes, and I liked them.
Well, I bet you'll you have eaten this before, so I know you'll like it.
Has he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he griped about the tomatoes then too, but he'll survive.
I won't gripe while we're live.
You won't gripe while we're live on camera. Anyway, do you want sour cream on yours or just cheese?
Just cheese.
All right.
I just went in there with my hands. I wasn't even being shy about it.
Yeah, that's right. It's a family show.
That is.
Now, I'm a picky eater, so if I like it, everybody will
That's
like
true. I did not have any clue what a picky eater this man was. I just assumed he couldn't cook. I didn't know that meant he wouldn't eat what I cooked. Anyway, all right. So, did y'all say grace?
Thank you for this food, amen.
All right, amen. All right, we're gonna dig in. Unless there's any other questions, this is what it looks like when it's done. It is very similar. I want Hayden to test it since, he talked about the Qdoba bowl and hotheads.
It's really similar, a bit more tomato-y. But again, that's because usually I would go without the diced tomatoes and then just add salsa on top.
No.
I can't taste the tomatoes in it, so.
You can't taste the tomatoes.
Because you flavor them. They're not like real, to me, they don't taste like a tomato. It's flavored, if that makes any sense.
It really doesn't, but as long as he eats it, that's what matters.
And then another thing that I would do, the chicken, I would dice it up a bit smaller if possible. But other than that, this tastes almost exact to either Qdoba, Chipotle, Hotheads, all of them.
Now, one thing to remember, if you were to dice up the chicken smaller, now here's the test. If you dice up the chicken smaller, what's the problem going to be?
Shred.
Shorter
No.
cook time.
Shorter cook time, which is a problem with the
Rice?
boom, you got it. All right.
I thought you were telling me like because it would cook fast because of the size.
Yeah, if you want the chicken to shred, you could cook it longer. But the thing is then it might dry out too.
Honestly, shredded chicken in here wouldn't be too bad either.
Yeah.
But, you know, because then it would be more evenly spread. You could probably get it with just about every bite.
Yeah.
But
Well, Steve, I wish we could share with you. You know.
We'll
Yeah,
get
me too.
a to-go bag.
A to-go bag.
To-go block.
I'm sitting over here, I'm drooling, man. I'm ready.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I
it's a
really
pleasure.
appreciate you taking the time.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
was
pleasure
nice
to work with
nice
We Thrive together.
Thank you. And I love you guys doing it together. And the chef comes in at the end. Perfect time. Right?
All right.
So have a good rest of the night. Happy Easter this weekend. And we'll definitely look forward to talking a little more next week.
All right. Thanks. See you on Monday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.